Recently watching all of these really cool featurettes that are coming out around Star Wars Andor, Willow, The Mandalorian, all this other stuff. I am fascinated. The little kid in me is fascinated by filmmaking and storytelling in a visual format. And every time I see one of these come up, I find myself watching it. Ignore the chickens because it's early morning here. And I love watching these featurettes because to me, it gives me a sense of looking in through the glass window behind the scenes of saying, here's how it went from a storyboard, from a written format to a storyboard to, concept art and then into sculpting and set building and the costume making and the planning. It's an intricate dance. And this sort of stuff for me is just breathtaking. I love watching it. This is the most recent one that came out around the Willow production, and they're going back to Wales in this particular featurette. I think it's really interesting to take a look at.
Willow, the series, is huge in scope. It's an epic story. We
It
had
is
the
an
best
epic
of the
story.
best working on the show.
Absolutely.
Brilliant set designers, costume designers.
Look at that. So, by the way, this is the guy right here. This is the same guy who played the new Chewbacca. He is the new Chewbacca. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he's a really tall guy. And I watched an interview with him the other day. We was talking about he went from playing this warm, fuzzy, cuddly character that everyone loved to playing this really nasty, troll-like figure who everyone hates. So he said it's a really kind of a different um, work environment for him, but still, fun to pursue. But it's interesting being a character in a show as opposed to per se an actor portraying an individual. When I say character, I don't mean like a character in the show, but like a monster creature. Maybe I should say creature instead of character. The other guy who does this a lot is and it's Saru, I think, in the new Star Trek Discovery, and he's done a ton of work for Guillermo del Toro, really tall, skinny guy. And there's also another guy who is out of New Zealand who does a lot of the orcs on Peter Jackson's films. And when you sit down and do interviews with the guys who play creatures, it's a fascinating type of work because they're not necessarily bound by the same restrictions as traditional actors who have to portray emotion through their face and through their eyes and through their voice. These guys get to rely on makeup and costumes to be creepy or cool or whatever. And I think it's just this is why I love watching these behind the scenes things because you get to take a look at what goes into making these creatures, operate.
And I was always amazed at what we'd created.
Sets were insane. One day there'd be a castle, and then there'd be
Oh,
like
by the
a
way, that
mine,
harpy scene. I go back to it if I can find it again.
a mine, a whole
I think we went past it.
castle, and then
There it is, right there. That harpy sequence in, I think it was episode 1, was really, really well done. I loved the way they portrayed that that transformation into this like nasty bird-like creature that's on the ground during that fight sequence at night. Really cool stuff. And again, a lot of this is set design, but also costuming and pre-planning and the choreography and everything else. There's a lot of work that goes into these productions, and that's for me one of the things that I really love to take a
be
look at.
a mine, a whole desert island, which was
Look at that
epic.
shot right there. Look at that shot. Now, I don't know if this is shot on location like Andor was, or if they're utilizing the same technology that they use for the Mandalorian and the Star Wars shows with their digital sets. A lot of this looks real, but there is a creature that they show here.
And then the creatures, I mean,
This right here. I don't care if you have beef with the writing and you're like, oh, it's cheesy and it's not meh because my nostalgia is tied into it and I can't separate that from this. Ignore that for a minute. You have to appreciate stuff like this happening because these types of things, when you're making creatures and special effects, this is what ILM and Lucasfilm became famous for back in the day was set design and creature design and making amazing storytelling moments that showed up on film so that the kid in all of us could watch it and feel a sense of wonderment. And I feel like a lot of people, a lot of adults have lost that sense of wonderment along the way because they become jaded, grumpy old people who can't see past their own political viewpoints to appreciate stuff like this, which is just the sheer imagination at work here of dozens to hundreds of people bringing characters like this to life. Because this to me, like it's like watching
they're just
um, the Dark Crystal show they did on Netflix, The Age of Resistance or whatever it was called, a couple years back. That was amazing. Like from a puppetry engineering standpoint, and the way they blended puppetry with CGI and voice acting and everything else was that's something to be celebrated. Like that is for me is you're pushing the boundaries of storytelling in a visual format because it's not just about creating something in a dark room or the writer's room and having actors portray it. It's taking these, you know, creature designers and these concept artists and these painters and sculptors and the robotics department and combining them to come up with things that look real on screen and can transport not just you, but also in many cases can transport the actor into their performance. Look at what they did with Grogu on the set of The Mandalorian with having that baby Yoda Grogu as an actual interactable object that is so high tech that it can transport the actors into that scene. I think that's really powerful stuff from a filmmaking
Just
standpoint.
incredible.
We really wanted to create our own world to make it as fantastical
That
and as
shot, I
otherworldly as
loved,
possible.
by the
It's
way.
just great fun.
Back in Wales.
Take 4, camera.
Look at
I've got
that.
many fond memories of filming in Wales.
Oh, 17 years old when he filmed this. That's a long time ago. Um, God, man, just takes me back. Takes me back.
On the first film. It was great that we went back to Wales for the series.
Wales is baked into Willow. It's the landscape of
So this is Jonathan Kasdan, his executive producer and writer. I think he did a great job. I've been hugely entertained, immensely entertained. Can I insert some more adjectives in there or adverbs, whatever? I don't know. My grammar sucks. It's entertaining. I'm having fun with it.
Willow.
Wales
Look at that. Look at that. Wales is a storybook country. It
is
is.
a storybook country. It just is the most beautiful place.
The scenery, the nature, everything is just
Look at that.
magical
Oh,
and
hold on,
Willow
hold on,
like.
hold on. Go back, go back, go back.
Everything is just
Look at that cottage shot. That is really, really, really cool. By the way, that does not look like a set. That looks like something that's actually, I mean, it could be a set, but that looks, you know, that looks lived in. If it is a set, they did a very good job with it.
magical and Willow like.
Willow! Just like old time.
Man, this is awesome.
It's awesome and epic and so cool.
I agree. It is awesome and epic and so cool. And also just a fun story. Way too many people, as I mentioned earlier, are getting way too caught up in their own political agendas and, having these viewpoints on what the show should or shouldn't be, and they're not just letting it be what it is, which is a fun story for kids. And the kid inside of us should appreciate that and just sit back and enjoy the ride.
It's just a fun story.
Yeah.
It's the perfect time for Willow.
I agree. I'm enjoying it. I'm having a lot of fun with the first 2 episodes. I'm about to watch it with Chris over the weekend and sink my teeth into it with her. We just watched, so I did the rewatch of the film a couple weeks back ahead of the show, and then Chris watched the film with me about 4 days ago. Actually, it might have been a little. I think it was last Sunday actually, so about 6 days ago now, almost a week ago. And then I watched the first 2 episodes when they came out and got them up on. I did the watch party here, and then I did the review. And then Chris is going to be watching it with me this weekend, and maybe she'll sit down and give her take of it. We're going to have her sit down and do a Rings of Power finale review with me because she had never read the book, so she had a completely different take on the Rings of Power than a lot of people because she knew nothing about the Silmarillion and had only ever seen Peter Jackson's films. And she doesn't have all of these, emotions and feelings about Willow because she didn't watch it when she was a kid. She didn't see Willow until she was in her 30s and then had a second watch through in her early 40s. So she has a completely different opinion on Willow than a lot of people. And I think it's interesting, and I think that opinion is something that can help a lot of people who are looking to get into this series or this film for the first time and want to really get the most out of this franchise because it is a lot of fun. Love to have more of you around here who want to share the love and celebrate fun storytelling like this. Drop a like. hit that subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you never miss an update, and support the channel if you can with a super thanks on Premieres. You can do super chats, and don't forget you can also join as a member of the Adventurers Guild down there. Hit up the Patreon page, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Cheers.